Picture this. It's 1994. Jeff Bezos is sitting in a highly successful, incredibly comfortable executive role on Wall Street. And what does he do? He walks away from it. He leaves that lucrative career behind to sell books out of a cramped, poorly insulated garage. Fast forward to today, and that exact same garage project now handles millions of packages every single day. It literally powers the underlying infrastructure of the modern internet and has minted one of the largest fortunes in human history. Welcome to our explainer of the Amazon Odyssey. We're going to take a deep dive into this wild tale of massive risks, near collapse, and relentless expansion into a global empire. It is quite the ride, so let's get into it.
Now, the catalyst for this entire empire really boils down to one single mind-blowing statistic. In 1994, internet usage was growing by 2,000% a year. 2,000%. At the time, most people just viewed the early web as a novelty. There was a curiosity, maybe a place for academics to chat online. But Bezos, he saw an unprecedented commercial opportunity. He realized that a growth rate of 2,000% wasn't just a trend, it was a tidal wave. And it was this exact, staggering, exponential growth that convinced him to pack up his life, drive all the way across America, and draft up a business plan for what he ambitiously called an everything store. Okay, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the garage startup, look at surviving the dot-com crash, transitioning from books to everything, discovering their secret weapon, AWS, breaking down the Prime ecosystem, and finally, unpacking a complex global empire.
So, kicking things off with Section 1, the garage startup, and literally packing books on the floor.
The early days were, well, they were incredibly far from glamorous. You've got Bezos and a handful of early employees literally on their hands and knees packing books on a hard concrete garage floor. They were so famously frugal that Bezos actually built their very first office desks out of cheap wooden doors and 4x4s from Home Depot, just to save a few bucks. But before they could even start packing those books, he needed a name. And he strategically chose Amazon for two absolutely brilliant reasons. First, it perfectly mirrored his vision for massive scale. The Amazon is the largest river in the world, and he fully intended to build the world's largest store. Second, there's a really practical technical advantage. It starts with the letter A. In the early days of the web, this simple trick ensured the company would automatically appear right at the top of alphabetical online directories. It was simple, it was highly strategic, and undeniably effective.
So you might be wondering, why books? Well, they were the perfect starting point because the internet allowed for an infinitely scalable inventory that no physical brick-and-mortar bookstore could ever hope to match. Very quickly, orders started flowing in way faster than anyone anticipated, reaching all 50 US states. But there was a major catch here. They weren't turning a profit. And this brilliantly illustrates Bezos' core philosophy, which was simply, get big fast. He understood that in the internet age, the winner would take all. Scale wasn't just a financial goal for him, it was a pure survival mechanism. Even while they were burning through massive amounts of cash, Bezos aggressively focused on capturing market share and long-term dominance rather than worrying about short-term profits. He was basically playing a completely different game than all of his critics.
Moving right along to Section 2, surviving the dot-com crash, or the great bubble burst of the year 2000.
If we rewind to the late 1990s, investors were throwing money at literally any business that had a .com at the end of its name. The hype was out of control. But then came the year 2000, and that bubble violently burst. The fallout was just absolute devastation across the tech sector, wiping out thousands of hyped-up companies practically overnight. And guess what? Amazon was not immune to this historic panic. At the peak of the crash, their own stock price plummeted by a terrifying 90%. Just imagine the psychological toll of that for a second. 90% of the company's public value just vanished into thin air. Pundits and financial experts were rushing to television networks everywhere to predict Amazon's total, imminent failure.
But here's the absolutely crucial point, and it's all about how this near-death experience fundamentally altered their corporate DNA. While the thousands of failed startups out there had a ton of hype but zero real revenue, Amazon was fundamentally different. They actually had real paying customers. But the crash acted as this intense crucible. The sudden evaporation of easy venture capital forced Amazon to pivot their internal strategy drastically. They couldn't just rely on top-line growth metrics anymore. They were forced into a state of relentless operational efficiency. They started obsessing over free cash flow, tightening their unit economics, and driving absolute customer retention. They just kept their heads down, trimming the fat and improving their logistics. Actually, scratch that. They didn't just survive the crash. The lack of capital forged them into a leaner, hyper-resilient machine, all while their competitors simply burned to the ground.
Which brings us to Section 3, from books to everything and expanding the marketplace.
Emerging from the crash stronger than before, the company began a really relentless, systematic expansion. It was like a giant puzzle they were putting together piece by piece. They stair-stepped their inventory meticulously. Step 1 was books. Step 2, they added music and electronics. Step 3 brought clothing and toys. But Step 4? Step 4 is where the real paradigm shift happened. Instead of only selling inventory that they had to buy, store, and manage themselves, Amazon opened their digital doors to third-party sellers. This was a stroke of absolute genius. They effectively got millions of other small businesses to take on the massive financial risk of holding the inventory, while Amazon simply collected a toll, a little fee, for giving those businesses access to Amazon's massive customer base. This exponentially expanded what you could find on the site and became one of the greatest high-margin growth drivers in retail history.
All right, let's pivot to Section 4, the secret weapon, AWS, the hidden profit engine.
Now we're looking at the hidden engine beneath the surface. Something most folks walking down the street don't realize is that Amazon's most profitable business isn't actually online shopping at all. Nope. In 2006, they launched Amazon Web Services, or AWS. So what is it? AWS is a cloud computing platform. Instead of a new startup or a massive global corporation spending millions of dollars to build out expensive physical data centers, they can just rent computing power, servers, and storage directly from Amazon over the internet. And what's super fascinating is that AWS was originally born out of Amazon's own internal struggles. They needed this massive, flexible infrastructure to handle the chaotic, enormous spikes in web traffic they'd get during the holiday shopping seasons. Once they built it for themselves to survive the holidays, they brilliantly realized, hey, we could rent this excess capacity out to the rest of the world.
And this dynamic completely changed the trajectory of the company forever. If you break it down, on one side you have the online shopping storefront. It has extremely high public visibility. It's what we all interact with every day. But selling physical goods operates on very high volume with notoriously thin, lower profit margins. Then, on the other side, right beneath the surface, you have AWS. It has virtually no public visibility. You don't see it when you order a package, yet renting out digital servers carries incredibly high profit margins compared to packing and shipping physical boxes. Because of this, AWS effectively bankrolls Amazon's retail dominance. It acts as this quiet, hidden engine that serves as the massive profit driver, allowing the retail side to offer lower prices, absorb crazy shipping costs, and basically bleed physical competitors dry. Next up, Section 5, the Prime ecosystem, and how it completely changed how we shop.
Alongside AWS, Amazon introduced another highly debated idea back in 2005 that became their second massive financial pillar. They launched Amazon Prime. The pitch was simple. They asked customers to pay an upfront yearly fee in exchange for faster, free 2-day shipping. Now, Wall Street thought this was an incredibly risky bet that would bankrupt the company on freight costs alone. No way could they afford it, right? But Bezos understood the psychological lock-in effect. This created what business strategists call a massive flywheel. Think about it. Once a customer pays that yearly fee for Prime, they subconsciously ignore all other retailers. They want to maximize the value of their subscription, so they start buying absolutely everything from Amazon, from big-ticket electronics to bulk toilet paper. This guaranteed recurring revenue stream and undeniable customer loyalty transformed Prime from a mere shipping perk into a complete lifestyle ecosystem, eventually adding streaming movies, music, and even gaming. It completely rewired consumer psychology forever.
And that leads us to our final stop, Section 6, a complex global empire, the modern tech giant.
Today, Amazon has completely transcended its origins. It's not just a bookstore anymore, folks. It relies on massive, worldwide warehouses, complex robotics, heavy automation, and advanced software to operate at a scale that is almost difficult to comprehend. Just look at the footprint we're dealing with today. E-commerce, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, smart home devices, global logistics networks, massive entertainment studios, and a booming advertising business. From buying your weekly groceries to the back-end servers hosting your favorite smartphone apps, is there any major modern industry left untouched by Amazon? They aren't just participating in these markets anymore, and many of them, they are setting the absolute baseline standard for everyone else.
However, as you might expect, a global footprint of this sheer magnitude does not exist without intense, ongoing scrutiny. Amazon's journey faces some very serious complexities as they navigate the modern era. The company is heavily monitored by governments and regulators worldwide. They're looking at things like worker conditions across their massive logistics networks, their overall market dominance, their competition practices regarding the third-party sellers on their platform, and privacy issues surrounding their deep integration into smart homes and consumer data. Balancing this relentless, historic drive for innovation with complex corporate responsibilities remains a defining, everyday challenge for the modern tech giant.
So, when we step back and look at the big picture, the trajectory of this company is truly historic. We are talking about a staggering journey from a man packing books on a hard garage floor, hammering together desks out of cheap wooden doors, to completely transforming the physical and digital infrastructure of the modern world. This company survived epic, historic market crashes that completely obliterated their peers. They ruthlessly out-innovated countless competitors. They built these massive hidden profit engines like AWS and engineered deeply psychological ecosystems like Prime to fundamentally reshape the internet and global retail as we know it today.
Based on everything we've unpacked in our explainer today, from those terrifying near-death experiences in the dot-com crash to their hidden technological engines pulling the strings behind the scenes, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Is Amazon the greatest business success story of the internet age? It's a genuinely fascinating question, and definitely one worth pondering the next time a smiling brown box lands on your doorstep. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.